Hey, welcome in. Good afternoon to the penultimate week of the regular season. That means, for those of you who don't know, it's the next to last week of the regular season, which means next week will be the last week of the regular season. There are exactly 11 days left, at least guaranteed, in Missouri's football season. We're going to talk about it here with Mitchell Forde on the weekend recap, presented by True Sun Exteriors and Interiors momentarily. But before we talk about it, hey, we got to tell you about our sponsor, and that is True Sun. You can find them online at TrueSunExterior.com, and you can get in touch with them at 573-442-7292. I have used every rebuilding construction analogy I can think of during this season. So rather than do that again, just get in touch with them. If you have anything going on at your house that needs attention, if you're rebuilding, if you're doing an addition, if you've got something that needs to be done inside or outside, True Sun is going to take care of it. Once again, that phone number is 573-442-7292. They were voted first place in the home remodeling category by Inside Columbia Magazine in the Best of Columbia issue. It is the number one team in Columbia and Edmond, Missouri. So make sure to get in touch with them today. Bring in Mitchell Forde now. Mitch, I don't know that we've ever been voted the number one team in Columbia in anything, but I mean, we could just award that to ourselves.
Yeah, probably. I mean, if we could pull like an audience of one, and then maybe there's a shot. I don't know.
If you're watching this show and you want to vote for us, just comment. If you want to vote for somebody else, please do not comment. Anyway, I guess the best football team that plays in a Columbia in the SEC East is Missouri. Actually, in a game that oddly really shouldn't have been close, and I kind of thought was over with 8 minutes left, and then all of a sudden, as is tradition in this series, wasn't exactly over.
Yeah, weird stuff does happen when these two teams play each other, but. Yeah, I mean, it was a good win. Obviously, I think it's safe to say it was Missouri's best win of the season. Previously, their only win over a Power 5 team was against Vanderbilt, and that hardly counts. So, like you said, it was fairly assertive. They were up 17 points with like 9 minutes to play. Maybe even could have been more than that if you look at a couple penalties going differently. So, yeah, I mean, I was fairly impressed. I know we're gonna dissect it more in the quarterback situation and everything, but the defense is coming around. I mean, I really think that it looks like a different unit than earlier this season, and I think that Steve Wilkes has probably saved his job, barring complete collapse here in the last couple games. So, I know it's not the season a lot of people envisioned, and the early losses probably squandered a little bit of the excitement, as we've seen in the attendance numbers these past few home games. But better to turn it around than the alternative and like go 3-9 or 4-8.
In a game that, look, we said going in, Missouri absolutely had to win, and they did. We'll start on the defense because we'll get to the other stuff later. And if you guys have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to throw them in the comment section. We'll get to them in the second half of the show. The defense, I think they gave up about 260 yards and really were better than that, I thought. I mean, some of those yards came late. A lot of 14 of the points came off turnovers, and I don't know how good South Carolina is, right? I think that what Saturday showed us is South Carolina, Florida probably had more to do with Florida than it did with South Carolina. But at the same time, Missouri has played worse teams that have been far better offensively than South Carolina was. So it is indefinitely progress.
Yeah, I think 21 of South Carolina's points actually came off turnovers, although the one after the Mookie Cooper fumble, they still had to drive basically the length of the field, but still technically points off turnovers. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I think that I've seen a few people maybe get a little bit back ahead of themselves, and I'm not blaming anyone. Like, your fans, you grasp for reasons to be optimistic. That's what you do. But yes, I don't think all of a sudden, I know that the tone has shifted from, oh my gosh, we may never win another game, going to be 4-8, this is a disaster, to, look, 8-5 looks reasonable with a bowl game win. Like, I want to pump the brakes a tad. Like, South Carolina, I don't think is very good. I think even before that game kicked off on Saturday, we kind of, or at least I kind of got the indication that their win over Florida had a lot more to do with Florida's defense being epically bad than anything else after Florida gave up 52 points to Samford. And South Carolina, they couldn't get a lot going. Their offense has struggled all year, and really it did not look very good. But yeah, like you said, I mean, like we saw SEMO run for almost 300 yards against this team. We saw, North Texas put up a bunch of yards against this team. We saw Central Michigan play them probably not on the scoreboard, but in reality a little tougher than South Carolina did. So you will absolutely take progress where you can get it.
Yeah, and look, I think the biggest difference defensively has been the defensive line. And we spent all season, is it the coaching? Is it the talent? And again, it's just not one thing. It's everything. And believe it or not, players and coaches sometimes get better throughout the season. And I think they've gotten better, but I don't think there's any huge secret to what's happened. Like, Isaiah McGuire has turned into the best player they have up front. Trajan Jeffcoat is winning some matchups. Darius Robinson is winning some matchups. Like, again, a lot of times football at the line of scrimmage is, are you better than the guy standing across from you? And finally, Missouri has started being better than the guy sometimes.
Yeah, I think we always, we being media and fans really, but always want to know, like, well, what happened? What caused this? And like a lot of times it's not maybe just one thing. And I'm sure like that'll be the tenor of the questions tomorrow. I may even ask like what went into, because we got to write about something, like what went into this change, what happened? And I think the answer is just going to be like, we played better. Like guys have made adjustments after they've watched the film of them playing badly and done some of the things they previously did badly, less badly. But yeah, Isaiah McGuire was a game wrecker on Saturday, and we haven't seen him make those plays previously this season, and he's been fine this season. I'm not trying to like pick on him or anything, but like he was unbelievable on Saturday. That fumble I thought was probably the biggest play of the game until the defensive score. But South Carolina, if they go down and score 14-0 there, Mizzou might just quit. Instead, they get the turnover, tie at 7-7. So that was huge. I mean, he was in there on a few other plays. He forced the interception to Chris Abrams-Strain. He had a sack. Trajan Jeffcoat started to look kind of like the all SEC type player people thought he would be. Maybe not as consistently, but still showed those flashes. Akil Byers made a couple plays. Kobe Whiteside made a couple plays. Arden Walker made a couple plays. So yeah, and when you can stop the run, I mean, like we this always goes with, it's kind of common sense, but we finally saw it happen. When you can stop the run, then you can finally start to get a pass rush with that front four, because they can just kind of tee off, and they were able to put Jason Brown into some difficulty without bringing a ton of blitzes.
Yeah, so the defense, hey, better, good for them. It's not the main intrigue at this point in time. What led to that potential 14-0 deficit was Missouri interception, and look, for 19 of his 21 throws, Connor Bazelak was somewhere between fine and good, right? I mean, I know people want the throws to actually go further, but whatever. He completed 15 of the 21 or something like that. And then, like, this is the nature of the quarterback position. Yes, it's only 2 plays out of 23, but they're the 2 we're going to focus on. And I don't really know how to say this other than, what? Like, what happened? They weren't just interceptions. They were just, the first one, I don't even know. I can't explain it. It looked like he was at a carnival, like trying to toss a ball into a trash can, right? And there was nobody. It was like there was just nobody. He's like, I'm just going to lob it here to make sure I get it to the trash can. Oh, by the way, There are 11 guys trying to prevent it from getting to the trash can.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, like, seriously, like I couldn't even really comprehend, and I haven't been able to see a replay of it because I haven't seen it in any like highlights. I've tried to look. I don't know what was going on there. I think they were trying to kind of go hurry up after picking up a first down, or maybe not having a spot reviewed, and then but yeah, it just made no sense. And the thing with Connor Bazelak is, a few things. But first of all, the one thing he had done really well for a lot of his early career was not make those kind of mistakes. And now it's not just that he's making mistakes. It's like once a game where you see a throw where you're like, what was that? I mean, like the throw against Vanderbilt where the safety truly didn't move. He just hit the safety right in the chest, throwing off of his back foot. There's been a few others this year too, where it's like he's gone from, okay, maybe he's not spectacular, but he can manage the game. He gets the ball where it needs to go, and he can make 1 or 2 big plays when you need him to. Like, now he's not making a ton of big plays, and he made a couple nice throws the other day, but he's making some of the just most killer turnovers. And that's where I think the issue obviously is coming into play where Eli Drinkwitz ultimately pulled him out of the game.
Yeah, and Missouri's just not good enough to survive that from the quarterback.
Right.
I mean, it just is. It doesn't. It may not need him to be, Brad Smith winning games on his own, but he can't be doing that. And then,
right.
I don't know, the second one, okay, it slipped out of his hands. It's, I guess, a little more explainable. But that, to me, was almost worse because it's literally the only thing you can't do there. And it indicates to me, I've almost got to think it's one of two things. Either it's nerves or he's just, his confidence is just shot. And maybe those two things are combined in one, right? But that's not like a physical error that had nothing to do with an injury as far as I can tell. It was just like, I don't know, he gripped the ball too hard and there it went at, a pop up to second base or something.
Yeah, Eli Drinkwitz said after the game, like, it had nothing to do with injury. Neither of them did. It was just two bad decisions. And really the second one, I don't know if it was so much a bad decision as, like you said, just a kind of a fluky play. And it'd be, it's tough because, like, it's possible that just, like, could happen to anyone, I guess. But, like, you start to lose the benefit of the doubt when that type of stuff is happening, like we said, once or twice a game. If that never happens and then suddenly, if he's, playing like he did, for the first, I don't know, 5 games he started last season, not really turning the ball over, playing pretty well, and he has one tough one at the end of a game like that where it slipped out of his hands, that's fine. But when it comes at the end of the stretch we've seen him have over the last, 6 starts he's had, he's thrown, I think, 10 picks in that span, 9 picks in that span. It just becomes, it becomes part of the pattern, part of the theme. And, like I said, Eli Drinkwitz decided he couldn't risk it anymore.
Yeah, so Brady Cook comes in for the final drive. So we'll talk plenty about this, but I want to ask you first of all, because I read it and I watched it, but you were at the press conference. It seemed like there was a shift in tone here from the head coach. It seemed to me like it's gone from don't even ask me a question about my quarterback to I understand. I've got some questions too.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously the biggest shift was the fact that he actually went to a backup because we hadn't seen him do that with Bazelak in the game, all year, even in, the blowouts when they were getting beat bad against A&M when Bazelak was really struggling, didn't put in the backup. And then after the game, he would say, Connor Bazelak still gives this team the best chance to win. And this week, kind of asked him the same question. I said, how do you approach the quarterback position from here? And he said, I don't know. I have to see who gives us the best chance to win. Not Connor gives us the best chance to win. He said, I think something along the lines of, I got to sit down, watch film, and see who gives us the best chance to win going forward, and we'll play that guy. So, yeah, he absolutely left it more open-ended than it has been in the past.
So my first reaction, and we texted about this during the game because it's what I was writing, it was, well, you can't. Once this is done, you can't take it back. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube on this. I'm not sure that's true. After thinking about it, you can. I think it's tough because, again, if what we're seeing is a quarterback whose confidence is shaken and who is off his game mentally, I can't imagine, hey, you've been our guy all along, but we don't even trust you to go in and hand the ball off and run a little bit and burn 4.5 minutes. Like, that's not going to help the confidence. So he still could start Bazelak, but if he's going to start Bazelak, I almost think he has to come out tomorrow and just say, look, we're going with Connor. He was off his game on Saturday. I thought Brady gave us the best chance to do what we needed to do then, but he is our starting quarterback as long as he is healthy enough to be our starting quarterback, and he has to end any talk of it right then.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. I think that is a possibility. We could definitely see that happen. But even if that happens, and I agree, that's the scenario you have to almost play out if you're going to play Bazelak. You don't need to be, doing the thing where you're like, well, we'll see, because, trying to get a competitive advantage, and then the game rolls around and it's Connor, but all week everyone's like, oh, we might see the backup. No way he plays Bazelak. Like, that would just lead to the scenario where, the first incompletion Connor Bazelak throws, the home crowd is going to be booing, calling for the backup, and that may still happen anyway. And that's why I know that we were saying on Saturday, like, this feels like a move that is hard to undo. Not can't be undone, but hard to undo, because, once you open that door, and once you got a guy who's, like you said, seems to be kind of mentally struggling with confidence, and you pull him and then you try to put him back in as soon as he has any sort of struggle. And like almost all quarterbacks have some struggles in a game, even a really good one. It's hard to give him enough leash, and for the crowd to give him enough leash to keep going.
Well, and let's be clear. The crowd the fans are done. They're ready for a change. Right. That doesn't matter. Like,
no, it doesn't. But I mean, I think it could matter from a confidence standpoint to Bazelak if he's in there and he's already struggling with that, and then he starts hearing boos after 2 incompletions.
Yeah, but from the standpoint of the decision, it should matter zero. Eli Drinkwitz should not care at all who you want to start, or I want to start, or Power Mizzou wants to sit. None of that matters. He has to make that decision, and that's why he gets paid $4 million. If I'm sitting here on Monday afternoon, I'd be kind of surprised if it wasn't Brady Cook. I mean, he showed on that last drive part of the reason he went in, which was, one of the biggest plays of the game. It was 2nd and 14, and Brady Cook ran for 11 yards, which allowed them to pick up the first down and run out the clock. If that's Connor Bazelak and you're in there on 2nd and 14, there's only 2 things you're doing. You're either handing it to Tyler Beatty or you're throwing the football, and the defense knows that, and you're not going to throw the football because it stops the clock.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I agree. I think if it was me, and like, obviously we don't see practice. I don't know very much about Brady Cook and what he can do other than the few plays we've seen him play in games. But I think I would go to Cook. You've mentioned a few times in various formats, like, all he's ever done is what's asked of him. So let's see what he can do when a little bit more is asked of him. And the running dynamic is, it's important. That adds something to the offense. He's clearly an intelligent player. I don't think he's going to just make like some decisions that, he may misread some things or whatever. Doesn't have a lot of experience, but like you mentioned, sliding inbounds to stop the clock. Drinkwitz has complimented his intelligence in the past. So like, I think that's something to be factored in. And the other thing too is, like, I know you said earlier, like, aside from 2 plays, Connor Bazelak was, he was decent to good. I would almost say you could just as easily flip it and say, aside from 2 or 3 plays, he was pretty bad. Like, he made the throw to Mookie Cooper. I've seen people knock him. That was a good play. That was a really good play. He stood in, he took a hit, he got the ball out where it needed to be, knowing he was going to get hit. I thought, he had 1 or 2 decent plays. The ball handling on that little short touchdown pass to Daniel Parker was nice. The touch was nice there. I'm sure there are one or 2 other decent plays because he completed 15 passes. But like, the vast majority of the rest was either the interceptions, or he had that one where he threw on the sideline to J.J. Hester when a guy was open for a touchdown and it was a dangerous throw. He had that completion to Daniel Parker where he almost missed him. Parker had to make that one-handed catch. He was wide open. And the rest of the completions were all behind the line of scrimmage, just about. He had 7 of his completions were behind the line of scrimmage. So, like, I don't think it's just, to me, it's gotten to the point where it's like, it's not like, okay, we can live with the mistakes because he's giving us this great dynamic ability no one can give us.
So the one thing I think Drinkwitz has put to bed is the idea that Tyler Macon's going to be a starting quarterback this year. He didn't play, and Drinkwitz made it pretty clear, like, there was no plan to play him. And we don't know this, but I really don't think we want to keep his red shirt. I don't think it's a factor here. I don't think Eli is worrying at all about 2025. I mean, if Eli is honest, and he usually is, I think he would say, I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 2025. What do I care if Tyler Macon's here in 2025, And so I understand why fans want to believe that, but I really just think it's just that he's not ready, and there's nothing more to it than that.
Yeah, coaches just don't really think that way. Like you said, they're worried about winning every game they can and surviving to the next season. They're typically not super worried about which player's going to redshirt and be around that long, if they can help. Obviously, they're not going to throw just some random person out there in a 5th game to play a kickoff when they don't need them to. But I think I've kind of interpreted Eli Drinkwitz's whole "we can only prep 2 quarterbacks to start" thing as kind of a message like, look, Tyler Macon could have a role with like design packages and stuff, but he's not. He's not a guy who we're planning to start a game right now unless we really need him to. Like he's more in a situational capacity. We may end up seeing some packages for him as a runner, but I don't think he's ready as a complete passer yet. I mean, like I think we sort of started to see it in the Georgia game, and he can get better, absolutely. But I think that I think barring something fairly drastic happening, something like Brady Cook getting injured too or something like that, I would be surprised if Macon starts a game this season.
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, guys, there are other players on the team. Like it's not just the three quarterbacks. They have 80 some odd scholarship players, or at least mid-70s. So there's a lot of other guys. And Kyle is asking about one of them. He says, "What does next year's offense look like without Beatty, and is the starting running back on the roster right now?" It's a really interesting question. I mean, I haven't seen enough of B.J. Harris or Elijah Young or Michael Cox or anybody else to say, well, he's clearly not a starting running back. I have no clue. I don't know what Missouri has at running back.
Yeah, I don't either. And I mean, like, we came into this season saying, like, gosh, I don't know how Beatty can handle the workload without Larry Roundtree. And it's worked out spectacularly. And I am absolutely not expecting B.J. Harris or Michael Cox to do what Tyler Beatty is doing this season. I mean, almost no one in Missouri history has done what Tyler Beatty is doing this season. But yeah, that's not to say they can't come in and be a good player, or, a combination of a few of those guys can't come in and do what's needed to, at least keep the offense going. I don't think they'll probably live through the running back position quite as much as they have this year because Beatty's been so good. But the hope is that, you've upgraded the receivers enough at that point that you don't have to. So yeah, and they also have, they have at least one incoming freshman committed. They're working on potentially adding another one. If they don't, maybe we could see someone added through the transfer ranks. So it's definitely possible that they'll bring in some help from that's not currently on the roster at that position. But it's a fair question for sure.
Yeah, it's also probably time. We talked about this on the postgame show a lot on Saturday. It's probably time I stopped dismissing the Missouri offensive line. Apparently, it's done a pretty decent job. I mean, not in every game. They've had some struggles here and there, but Tyler Beatty doesn't have 1,200, 1,300 rushing yards with a line that's not playing well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt like kind of throughout the season, their issue had been, in the games against higher levels of competition, you could kind of see they weren't getting the same push as they were against, the lower level teams. I mean, like, I don't know the exact rushing numbers, but Beatty was way down against Kentucky, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas A&M compared to the rest of the games. But and South Carolina obviously isn't a great team, but their defense had been really solid this season. Their defensive line has some talent. That Kingsley Enagbare dude is talked about as a potential NFL pick. They have some guys there, and the Mizzou offensive line, which was down 3 tackles, played really well. I think that's like kind of the underneath like the sub story of the game that I'll probably try to write later this week. That there just wasn't enough time to talk about too much on Saturday because of everything else that happened with the defense and the quarterback situation and Tyler Beatty. But you have Bobby Lawrence, who Drinkwood said was on scout team last week. Then he started the game at tackle. Then he left. They shifted Connor Wood, who's only in the lineup because of Case Cook's injury, from right guard to right tackle, and played E.J. Doma-Ogar at right guard for his first significant action of the year. And the line was as good as I've seen it.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of quarterback questions, which we're going to get to in a minute as soon as I finish fixing. There you go. We're back to normal. I've got it figured out. But a lot of quarterback questions, which we'll get to quickly. Reed says, what are the odds that Drinkwitz pulled Bazelak at the end to keep Florida guessing who the starter is going to be? I'm going to guess 0 and some number that is significantly less than 0 on that.
Yeah, I don't think that entered the calculus there. He may, if he's coy during the week this week, it would maybe be to keep Florida guessing because I really feel like by now, here on Monday or at least by when we talk to him Tuesday, he's going to probably know or have a very good idea who's starting. But I don't think that entered the calculus in the moment. I think in the moment it was, all right, well, we can't trust this guy to go out here and not give the ball away, so we'll try the other guy.
Yeah, and he has been pretty clear. Like, look, I just kind of like listing him as questionable and not tell. Like, I'll give Drinkwitz this. It is maddening at times that coaches do this game where they think it makes a huge difference, but he just flat out admits, well, the reason I'm doing it is because I just don't want to tell you guys and I don't want the other team to know. So that's fine. As long as it's admitted up front, like I'm screwing with everybody, that's cool. I can live with it. I mean, it's still kind of dumb, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. At least he doesn't try to like rationalize it too much. And like the fans don't have to try to rationalize it for him and fight us about it. Like it's cool. I get it. It's part of covering college football. You got to act like you're protecting, the nuclear launch codes.
Right. Okay. Matt wants to know, does Macon not getting the backup job solidify him transferring? I mean, no, not at all. I mean, he's a true freshman that hadn't played football in 2 years. I don't think he probably came to campus this year expecting to play. I mean, is it impossible that he chooses to transfer this offseason? No, it's never impossible. Everybody transfers now. But I don't think we need to worry about that quite yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. If he was coming in, maybe he was hoping to make an impact right away, but if he was coming in expecting to get the starting job right away as a true freshman who hadn't played in a couple years, that just not very realistic. I don't think that him being third on the depth chart is really a surprise to anyone. I think that's kind of been the situation all year. And all year, like there was hesitancy to kind of name a backup, it seems like, from Drinkwitz. And that, was kind of maybe thought of as part of the reason why he didn't put in a backup in some of those games. But like the team had to know, like he even said on Saturday, like, yeah, usually we just game plan with the starter and the backup knows what he's going to do when he goes in. And I'm pretty sure that was always Brady Cook because he would always take the number 2 snaps before games. So I think Macon had to kind of know. I don't think it's a big surprise. I'm not going to guarantee he doesn't transfer, but I don't think this necessarily increases the likelihood.
Yeah, Brett asked, do you think the final 2 games decide if they go after a transfer quarterback?
Yeah, this is an intriguing question to me because, like, until, a week or 2 ago, I would have said there's no chance they're going after a transfer quarterback because, you already are going to have a crowded quarterback room next year when Sam Horn shows up. We always said there was a good chance that one of the 3 guys, or one of those 4, but probably not Sam Horn, obviously right away, ends up moving on. If you bring in a transfer, obviously that just increases the odds that 1 or 2 other people would move on. But if you're not sold on what you have on Connor Bazelak, and Brady Cook maybe starts these last couple games and you're not sure what you have on him, or you don't really love what you see from him, your options next year are, Bazelak, who, has frankly regressed throughout the course of this season. And if he's still around, he could be a guy who transfers. Brady Cook, who at that point will have started maybe like 2 games and barely played. And, obviously in this hypothetical situation, didn't impress you that much. Tyler Macon, who has basically never played, and Sam Horn, who has never played and won't show up until the fall. But it's just risky. And these are the decisions that I'm glad I don't have to make and that Eli Drinkwitz gets paid a lot of money to make. Because if you bring in a transfer quarterback, he's got to be the right guy because you're probably running off like 2 other dudes if you do that. Like guys are not going to be super thrilled. Like Connor Bazelak will know, like, okay, writing's on the wall. Maybe he just wants to stick around because he likes it at Mizzou. Probably not. Someone like Brady Cook. Okay, I didn't get the job done. They're bred in someone else. I'm out of here. So like it's got to be the right guy. But on the same side, if you don't bring someone in, you got to feel pretty confident you have the right guy on the roster now. And so yeah, I do think the last couple of games will play a big role in that.
And see, I think what actually plays a big role in it is what they will find out or maybe already know that we don't. But I think it depends on if anybody's leaving. If Bazelak wants to come back and Macon or Cook wants to come back and you've got Sam Horn coming back, you're fine. If you've got 3 guys next year, you don't have to go get a grad transfer quarterback. Now, if they find out, hey, toward the end of the season, Connor Bazelak comes and says, look, guys, I'm out. And either Macon or Cook says, hey, I don't feel like I'm going to ever win the starting job, so I'm out. Then if you're looking at just one of these guys and Sam Horn, then I think you have to go get a transfer. Now, I think it has to be a grad transfer. It has to be a one-year guy. You're not going out and getting a sophomore transfer quarterback because then tons of people are transferring. But I don't think you make that move until you know the move the guys on your roster are going to make. I think it's semantics, but I think we're talking about which one comes first. And I think the move would have to come internally before. I don't think they will take a transfer quarterback and then get rid of other guys. I think they will wait to see what happens with their guys that are on campus and then make the decision from that point. This one's interesting, Mitch. John Renfro believes that this game went south when the camera panned to the sideline showing Drinkwitz and all the players dancing and laughing up by 17 with 9 minutes or so to go, and they lost focus. I mean, I do want to point out, first of all, before your reaction, that if the game went south, it still stayed north enough. They did win the game, so it didn't completely go south. I truly have no idea the camera shot he's talking about. I don't know. I'm sure they were probably happy when they were up 17 with 9 minutes to go. I would have been happy were I them.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I couldn't see this. In the press box, I'm to the back of all the sideline, so definitely it's not something that's been on my radar. You can definitely, there is a place to nitpick and say that this team has not really put together a 4-quarter game yet this season. I would say that is true. Even against SEMO in North Texas, they kind of fell apart towards down the stretch. But I would counter that by saying, yeah, well, this team's not good enough for you to nitpick. Just be happy that they beat a decent team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The last question comes from Dave Bostelman. Good things happen on the rare occasions when they throw to the tight ends, especially Nico Hay. Why don't they target them more? Did the head coach forget how much grass is in the middle of the field? Mitch, while you react to that, I'm going to look up Nico Hay's stats and the tight end stats just so I have some general frame of reference here.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure that good things have been happening when they throw to Nico Hay. I can't remember him making many highlight reel plays this season or really being all that open. You can always try to scheme up things for the tight ends, and I think Drinkwitz does that from time to time. I mean, the little pass on the goal line to Daniel Parker Jr., which, by the way, was called Popsicle. I learned that in the postgame press conference. That was schemed up for the tight end. You have every once in a while you have the little shovel pass to Nico Hay. They tried to throw to Nico Hay on the goal line at the end of the first half in this game. He got stuffed. I don't know. I tend to think that I'm not seeing the tight ends running wide open all over the field, or winning their one-on-one matchups a ton on this team. I think that there's probably bigger issues.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up. So Missouri has 3 tight ends that have caught a pass. Daniel Parker, Nico Hay, and Messiah Swinson have 30 catches for a combined 208 yards. That is less than 7 per reception. The lowest yards per reception is actually Nico Hay, who has the most catches with 14 for 73 yards. He's averaging 5.2 yards a catch. Parker has 3 touchdowns. Hay has 1. They've done what they've been asked to do. But I've said since the beginning of the year, as far as a pass-catching tight end, Missouri doesn't have one. I mean, if they have one, I think it's Messiah Swinson, who obviously can't really get on the field. Parker is a blocker for the most part. Nico Hay is he's a possession guy if you can throw short, but he is not going to do a lot once the ball's. I mean, they had to rush the field goal team on the field, and I'm not saying this is all Nico Hay's fault, but he caught the ball at the 2-yard line and didn't get in the end zone at the end of the first half. So, yeah, of the list of things that I think this team needs to do more or do better, I just don't really agree that throwing to the tight ends is one of them. Now, if Ryan Horsekamp or Gavin McKay turns into that guy, if you get back and if you had Chase Kaufman on this team and he had 8 receptions for 70 yards, I would take issue with that. But I don't think Chase Kaufman is on this team. So, yeah, I don't know. Mitch, we haven't talked any basketball, largely because, I don't know. They play Kansas City tonight. That should be fine.
Yeah, I'll be there. Hopefully they don't lose. It's happened before where UMKC came into Mizzou Arena and won. That was also the sign that season and head coaching tenure was not going to go great. So
it's the only time I've ever known in game 1, this was a terrible idea.
Yeah, usually we're always like, give it time, don't overreact. No, there's no reaction that is over the top if Mizzou loses to UMKC. So yeah, I'll be there. We'll write about it. don't expect, if anything crazy does happen, it's not good for you guys. I'll just say that.
Right. I mean, we expect this to be very run-of-the-mill. Thursday to be very run-of-the-mill. Then Saturday, Sunday get a little bit interesting in the long tenured and much anticipated Jacksonville Classic, which is, I don't know, first annual? I don't really know that, but
I have no idea.
That's what we're going to go with. Okay, so last thing here, and we're going to finish up. Cody says, to throw in a basketball question, I would think Trey King would be a great addition. He played 3 years at Eastern Kentucky, transferred to Georgetown, was basically dismissed from the team for some sort of conduct violation, rules violation. Doesn't really seem to be like a major deal, but whatever. He can't play at Georgetown, so he entered the transfer portal. He visited Wichita State over the weekend. He's visiting Missouri on Wednesday, and he will visit Iowa State on Saturday. And I have already read on our message board that he is the missing piece to a tournament team this year for Missouri. I don't know if I believe that, but I do believe he would probably immediately be in the starting lineup for this team.
Yeah, I mean, like I've never watched him play. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert
not a big
on him
Eastern Kentucky
I will
Colonels
say, like,
fan.
This is why we have advocated at times in the past for leaving the 13th scholarship open and not using it on an Ed Chang or an Axel Okongo junior college flyer who never ends up playing. People do transfer all the time now in college basketball. I assume Trey King would not be eligible until the second semester. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Then,
and nobody knows for sure if he would be then, but his plan is to enroll somewhere second semester and apply for a waiver.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. It'd be intriguing. Just go ahead and add another new face, another transfer to the mix, and I don't think it could hurt necessarily. But yeah, I don't. My deal's always like, we'll see what happens and then deal with it from there.
Yeah. Look, mid-year transfers have worked out before for Missouri. That O'Lenny kid did all right back in '94. I know what I was going to say. Like, I will have none of this Ed Chang slander. I'm over this. So we are doing two things. I'm ending the show because of your slander of Ed Chang, and I am now looking into plane ticket prices to the Jacksonville Classic so that you can go find out why Ed Chang did not play in the Jacksonville Dolphins' first game of the year.
I think that's actually a good investment. Two birds, one stone, can cover the Mizzou games and do some investigative reporting, deep dive into what's going on with Ed Chang. And is Ed Chang even a real person? Because that's still not totally clear to me.
You said you saw him in person last year. So
I did. I mean, I saw someone wearing his jersey number. It could have been anyone. There's really no telling. I never heard him speak. I never saw an ID or anything. It could be anyone.
All right. So if you happen to be a person going to the Jacksonville Classic, not going to say it's going to happen, but there could be a Power Mizzou stringer fee if we get the expose on why Ed Chang was a DNP and not listed in the box score for Jacksonville's home opener. So, Mitch, I know you got to get down to Columbia this afternoon, so we will let you go, man. Talk to you later on.
Sounds good.
All right, so Mitchell Forde, we are letting him go, and I'm going to go shortly here, but before I do, I am going to remind you guys that every Monday this show has been made possible by True Sun Exteriors and Interiors. Choosing the wrong construction company is a problem. True Sun Exteriors is the right construction company, and that is why you should choose them. They are going to make sure just that every step of the way goes the way you want it to go. It's a local company, hometown pride. They care about your experience and your satisfaction with the finished product. So they're going to keep you in the loop, everything, every step of the process. They're going to give you all sorts of choices. They're going to work with you. They've got great customer service. They were named the best home remodeling company in Columbia by Inside Columbia Magazine in 2021, and I would anticipate that is an honor that they will receive many more times in the future. So if you have something going on around your house, you got a project that you need done, get in touch with the guys at True Sun at 573-442-7292. They would appreciate it. We would appreciate it, and that means everyone would be happy. Brett Stevens tells us that Ed Chang is not listed on the Jacksonville University roster. That's terrible news. I don't want to talk anymore. So we're done. So long, Ed Chang. We barely knew you.